Good evening, everyone. Yeah, there's some sorry, it's a weird thing. So for some reason, I'm in another part of the screen. So let me check if I can do something. Okay, let's leave it as it is. So I think it's not a big deal when I'm in another part of the screen. So sorry, I just got fever. So my voice is a bit is bald a bit right now. So but actually, our today's session will be pretty quick because not much new I can tell you about the S3 buckets. You already know almost everything about it. Okay, let's do maybe the mic check. So can you hear me? And can you see the screen? It should be the presentation, the title list. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. So in the scope of the fifth task of our course, we'll be talking about the integration of our application with the S3 bucket. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to make the to upload the file to the S3 bucket in order to and we will try to make it as secure as possible and in the more let's say cloud native way. And let's have a look on how can they achieve it. So first of all, here's the agenda, and as you can see, there is not much actually to discuss about. So we'll just discuss, we'll just talk about the task itself, and then you'll have a chance to ask the questions if you will have any. Okay, first of all, maybe let's have a look at the schema of the task number 5. So this is in our range of interest. So as you can see, now we will talk about the import service of our application. With the import service, on the import service, you can understand like we want to have an entry point in our application which will be responsible to which will make us possible to upload the products to our application in bulk. So just not to add them one by one with the create product function. We'll try to leverage the bulk uploading. So we'll just upload the CSV file containing all of the necessary information about our products. And in the scope of this task, I think that's it. So we will just try to upload the file, and then we will try to parse this file with the lambda function. It will be necessary for the upcoming tasks. So as you can see down below of the red square, you can see that there are already some additional services. So it's like SKSQ, so which is we'll talk about it a bit later, but it's actually a tool which will make it possible to upload, to parse this, not parse this file, but take the items from the file we will upload and add all of the items one by one to the database. And we will also try to implement the notification about the successful uploading. But yeah, let's talk about it a little bit later. I'm sorry. So, and as you can see, now finally we will work with with another service of our application, and it will be import service. So we will need to create another folder with another CDK stack, and this stack will be responsible only for importing the file into our application, and actually that's it. We will need to create the additional API gateway just because the authentication method between product service and import service may differ. So this is why we will need to create another API gateway and 2 more Lambda functions. And both of these Lambda functions will be somehow linked within our S3 bucket. So first Lambda function will just ask in our S3 bucket for the signed URL, which we will use to upload the file into the S3 bucket. And the second Lambda function will just take the information, and the second Lambda function will be triggered by the event from the S3 bucket, which will be the appearance of new file in the S3 bucket. So every time we will put something in the S3 bucket, this Lambda function will be triggered, and this Lambda function will take this file and parse it. I think that's it. So maybe let's have a look at the task itself. So let's go to the repository. So let me just rearrange it a bit. Where it is? Yeah, here we go. Yep. So here's our repository. I'll just go ahead and go to the task number 5. Let's have a look at the tasks. For GS only, I'm not sure what's the purpose of specifying it in here, but still, yeah, if you're using the JS, so pay attention to this one. Architecture, we just saw this one. So yeah, first of all, we will need to create a new stack on the CDK, which will be the import service. We already have the product service, so now we will need to create the import service in our existing repository. So it will be repository with 2 services right now, but a bit later we will have the third one, but in the further tasks. In the AWS console, create a new S3 bucket with a folder called uploaded. So this is pretty what it is. So you will need to go to the AWS console, create the new S3 bucket, and create the folder called uploaded in it. Share the screen, please. Can't you see it right now? So it should be okay. Nope. My screen is not visible. Okay, let me try to do it once again. So like this and like this. Because it's pretty weird because I can see it on the preview and it looks good. Okay, yeah, cool. Hope now I can see it. Cool. Okay, so sorry. So as I already mentioned, we will need to create another folder in our existing repository. The repository which we are using for the back-end services. But if you're using just one repository for the front-end and back-end, just go ahead and create the import service alongside the product service. It will be enough. Next, you will need to go ahead and manually create the S3 bucket via the AWS console and create a folder called uploaded. But yeah, as I already mentioned, so one thing worth mentioning. So S3 bucket actually doesn't have the kind of folders. It's just an abstraction, let's say. So whenever you are putting something in your S3 bucket, you are not putting it in some kind of folders. You are putting it to some specific path. So we can say that we are creating the folder. So we are creating some specific path in our S3 bucket, and maybe not the path, but key for in our specific S3 bucket. And this specific key, yeah, for simplicity, sometimes it's called folder, but actually it's not folder in the like the one we are using in the Unix systems, so or maybe Windows. I guess we are pretty the same. Okay, so once you succeed with the 5.1, go ahead to the 5.2, and you will need just to create a Lambda function which should be called import products file. And this one should be triggered by HTTP GET method. Why GET? Why not put? Just because with this one, we will only ask in our S3 bucket for the signed URL. This signed URL, you can actually, I believe you can read about it in here. Yeah, so there is an awesome explanation about how it works. What should you do with it? But just in a few words. So we are just asking S3 bucket to create the signed URL. And this URL is, first of all, it's not permanent. So it will be, it has some time to leave, but I'm not sure which is the default value. And another thing is we will ask the S3 bucket for the signed URL for some specific file name. So this S3 bucket will only allow us to put this exact file inside the S3 bucket. So, but maybe right now it looks not secure enough just because we don't have any authentication at the side of the API gateway. But when we will implement it, not sure if it's in the scope of this course. Let's have a look. What is the second arrow? Yeah, it's authorization service. Okay, cool. So we will talk about it a bit later. So right now we will just trigger the API gateway endpoint and ask for this signed URL, and then we will use this signed URL to upload our file. That's pretty it. Later we will implement the authorization for this one. Authentication. Okay, yeah, it may be authorization actually, but yeah, we will have a look a bit later inside of this Lambda function. And what's gonna happen next? So when S3 bucket will give us this signed URL, we will just use it to upload our file on the S3 bucket. And this is actually it if we are talking about the import products file Lambda function. Request URL should be /import. Okay, implemented / explicitly request the same file but it's creating. Okay, makes sense. So name will be passed in a query string as a name parameter and should be described in the AWS CDK stack as a request parameter. Okay, I think we will look at it a bit later, and I will show you an example of the code which should work. Update CDK with policies to allow Lambda function to interact with it. Yeah, it's quite an important thing. So by default, our Lambda function doesn't have an access to the S3 bucket, but we can create the policies which will allow our Lambda function to make some actions against the S3 bucket, the specific one. So, but since we are creating the S3 bucket manually, we will need to, in the CDK, we will need to get the information about this S3 bucket and then create the policies for this S3 bucket and then assign it to the Lambda function, which will interact with the S3 bucket. Response parameter should be clean signed URL as a string. So yeah, pay attention, but it will be just clean signed URL, because sometimes when we are getting something from the Lambda function, it returns something in the JSON under some keys and so on. And yeah, first time I spent so much time trying to figure out what's wrong. Just because I didn't pay enough attention what my Lambda function actually brings back from the S3 bucket. And yeah, it was just a clean string. It should be just clean string. And our application expects, but it will be just a clean string. But yeah, I tried to implement the Lambda function which returns it with the in the JSON format under some key. So yeah, pay attention to this one. Lambda function should be integrated with the front end by updating import property of the API path configuration. So I think it's about we should create the API gateway and create the import property. Lambda endpoint should be integrated with the front end by updating import property. Okay, import property. I think it's the one where we already made some changes when we specified the API gateway URL in our front end part of the application. So the same we should do for the import property. Before it was products, now it's import. It will be two different URLs from two different API gateways. Okay, and once you're done with this one, you should be able to upload the file, CSV file, via the UI of your via your application, via the web browser or just something else. And this file should appear in your S3 bucket. So yeah, this is actually the definition of done. You will see it, and it's pretty. And in the 5.3, we should create another Lambda function which should be called import file parser. This Lambda function, as I already mentioned, should be triggered by an event, which in our case will be appearance of a new file in the uploaded folder of our S3 bucket. So whenever something appears in the uploaded folder of our S3 bucket, this Lambda function should be triggered. And this Lambda function should take this CSV file, read it line by line, and okay, there is something about this CSV parser. I don't know, maybe it's something about for Node.js or something like this. But for Python, you can choose just any library you want. So just to parse this CSV file and print all of the information line by line in the logs. So using just print function. So just to make it visible in the CloudWatch. And actually, here is the question. So how to check this one? And if I recall it correctly, so the best option is just to attach the screenshot of your CloudWatch where you are, where is visible, but your Lambda function is actually parsing this CSV file and reading all of the lines one by one. Create branch from the master, from the main, or whatever it's called, and provide a pull request to the submission. Okay, AWS contains, you should verify Lambda function by invoking them through provided URL. Okay, yeah, there is nothing actually about the screenshot, but I think it's good to have, actually. So if it's not bothers you so much, so if you can attach the screenshot of the CloudWatch where is visible, but your parsing function is working, so it will be great. Because otherwise, the person who will check your job will need just to read the code of your input file parser, and that's it. Actually, it's not a big deal, so you can leave it, which is as convenient for you. Could you please reiterate why import cannot be placed under the same API as products? So I believe you mean why can't we place this Lambda function under the same API gateway which we used before? So pretty simple. It's two different, this API gateway serves two different functionality of our application. So it's a good idea to separate them, especially because you don't paying for each API gateway. You are paying only for requests or just something is happening inside of your API gateway. So it's not a big deal for you just to create the second one. And in this case, you will just have two of them serves two different tasks. So first one will be for products and the second one. So once again, if we will have a look at the full schema, so sure, finally it will be placed in the products DB. But before, all of the information from uploading this file and before it goes to the DynamoDB. Is it DynamoDB? Yeah, it's DynamoDB. So there is a huge path before it. So it's a good idea to separate them. So this is why we are creating another API gateway. And especially for this API gateway, we will create the authorization just to make sure that only authorized people uploading the file in our application. So where was I? Okay, hope I answered the question. But anyway, if it's not clear, so you can just let me know or reach me in the Discord. So whichever is more convenient for you. So additional tasks. Lambda is covered by unit tests. You should consider to mock S3 and other AWS CDK methods. So not trigger actual AWS services while unit testing. Import products. I don't know. I don't know how to do it, actually. But yeah, if you can come up with some ideas, so just go ahead and create some unit tests. Unfortunately, I'm not strong enough with tests, so I can suggest you something in here. Yeah, my fault. But I would advise you to go to the Discord channel and ask, maybe someone is already came up with the ideas about this one. Second one, import file parser lambda is covered by unit tests. Actually, the same. So if you can come up with some ideas how to do it, just go ahead. At the end of a stream, the lambda function should move the file from the uploaded folder into the parsed folder. That's pretty it. So whenever our lambda function will put the file in the S3 bucket, and when we take in this file and when we parsing it, so you will just need to take care of this one and just put it in our folder. And in this case, pay attention for these folders, for these paths, for these keys in the S3 bucket, because if you will provide permissions for your lambda function only to deal with the uploaded path, this lambda function will not have any permissions to do something in the parsed path. As usual, there's a penalty for serverless framework used to create and deploy infrastructure. Don't know why, but still. And here's the description for pull request. So, as usual. If there's anything else, I don't think so. Maybe the only thing left is we can have a look at the code, how it looks like on my end, and maybe I'll come up with some other topics. Not sure if it's on this screen. Oh yeah, here we go. So first one is just the lambda function, the usual one, but only with the environment variable, which is the bucket name. And here you can see the bucket, the name of this bucket is import bucket. This is the one I created manually. Sorry. And this is why I just put it, just hard coded it inside of my lambda function, inside of my CDK. In order to provide to my lambda, in order to give my lambda functions permissions to put something and read whatever you want from the S3 bucket. And if we will, sorry, and if we will have a look at the lambda function itself, so it's pretty simple. Python have a specific library for some AWS duties, and in this case it's Boto3, which has the class which is called client, and then I'm just going in the S3 bucket, generating the pre-signed URL for my S3 bucket, and this is actually it. So this is the return code. So this is how I this is how my response from this lambda function looks like. So there's nothing inside except the body itself. So whenever I'm getting the response from this lambda function, I'm getting only this signed URL itself. So without any, I don't know, URL keys or just something like this. So there's nothing, just body, and inside of this body I have the, how it should look like. Okay, it should look like this. Yeah, like this. So there should be nothing like this, only the signed URL inside of the body. Pay attention to this one, please. It's quite important. Maybe not that obvious. In case of parse file, okay, I already have some SQSQ implementation in here. But what this lambda function does, it just takes the file from the S3 bucket and just reading it line by line, printing it line by line in my logs. So just to make it visible in the CloudWatch. There is nothing about this one, just because I'm already using the SQSQ. But yeah, just believe me, so we should be something like for... Oh yeah, here we go. It's print row. So this is the idea of this task. And as usual, just an API gateway with some get, with one get endpoint. But since we have two Lambda functions, there will be only one, just because the second one doesn't need the, will be triggered not by the API gateway, but by an event from the S3 bucket. So this is pretty, service stack, parse product Lambda. So yeah, here we go. Actually pretty the same, but with one difference. Yeah, so whatever something is happening in the uploaded, we are making our stuff, whatever we need. That's pretty it. Oh, actually I have a test. Not sure if it's import service stack. Am I succeed with it? Don't think so. Assertion to implement, don't know, some meaningless stuff. So yeah, you should think about it by yourself. And this is actually how the CSV file should look like. So just CSV file with product ID, title, description, price, and count, and all of the products we want to put in our application. This is it. Okay, so sorry, if you have any questions, go ahead, it's your time. Do you guys plan to learn materials with teachers with serverless framework? I think I'll additionally ask the creators of this course about why do we have this penalties for the serverless framework. And I don't know, I'm not sure if we should create this kind of borders, don't use this one, don't use this one. But I actually don't know what this framework is, because I've never worked with Node.js or TypeScript or just whatever it is. Yeah, maybe for the upcoming runs, we will just remove these penalties and leave it as it is. I don't know, is it kind of is it kind of something that will replace CDK, or I don't know. Okay, so at this point, if you don't have any questions, can you show example of the CloudWatch logs? Let's have a look. I'm not sure if I have any right now, but what I mean by CloudWatch logs. So if we are talking about the scope of this task, so you should just see something like, okay, yeah, let's have a look at my console. So if I have anything, it's CloudWatch. So with Python, just printing something using print function is just enough. Groups, okay, there is something. CDK deployment. Yeah, it's something from my Lambda functions, which I just deployed recently. Let's have a look inside. So actually, this is how these logs look like. And as you can see, there should be something like, okay, this one is ended with error. Error. Yeah, not much, unfortunately. Okay, let's open all of them. Let's try to have a look if just any of these have the result of the print function of the Lambda. Most likely cause, yeah, it looks like an error once again. Not here, not here. Nothing here as well, unfortunately. So, oh, cool. Yeah, sorry guys. Ugh. Yeah, my fault. So yeah, this is how the CloudWatch looks like. So I'm just gonna go ahead and open the CloudWatch, go to the logs, log groups, and in these log groups, I believe it should be something like lambda function logs, which should be okay. Yeah, let's have a look at this three. I believe just some of them should have the successful result of the lambda function execution. Still no sharing. I don't know what's wrong with this one. And like this. I don't know what's wrong. Maybe it's an internet or just the new UI of this tool which I'm using to stream. All good. Okay, cool. Thank you. So let's go ahead. So once again, so I just opened the AWS console, gone to the CloudWatch, and then opened the logs and log groups. This is a place in our Lambda function will store all of the logs which it will create. And if you're talking about the Python, I'm not sure about the I'm not sure about the Node.js or TypeScript, not just whatever, but I believe console log or something like this. But in case of a Python, it's just print function, and print function is just enough to make some logs inside of the Lambda function. Unfortunately, I can't see something in here. Just because these lambda functions just ran and returned nothing for some reason. But if you will use the print function, so you will have something like the output of your lambda function, and it will be just visible in this particular screen. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any, and yeah, but it should be just visible in here. So it will be print, and all the information about your products will be printed and should be printed in here. So it's not a let's say important thing just because it's for educational purposes. Because on the upcoming tasks, we will use the SQSQ just to get the information from this S3 bucket, from this CSV file line by line, and provide this information to another Lambda function, which will be responsible to take this data, create a notification to our email, and put this data in the DynamoDB. But right now, yeah, it's just a good idea to print the information about it in the logs. So use console log if you're using Node.js or TypeScript. And if you're using Python, just go ahead and use print function to leave these logs with the Lambda function. Okay. Could they move the next lecture to the beginning of the week? I will try. I'm sorry. I just, yeah, as I already mentioned, I got a fever on Friday. So, yeah, whole this week was a mess for me. And yesterday we also had a workshop. So, yeah, the week was a bit messy. But for upcoming ones, yeah, I'll try to do it on Monday. Unfortunately, I'm a bit busy on Monday evening, so only if it will be the same time as today, because so it's 90, it's 7:30 p.m. my location. So if it's okay, so yeah, we can just run it on Monday. Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Where should the console logs be placed? I believe in the code of the Lambda function. So once again, this is how it looks like from the perspective of the Python. So as you can see, this is a Lambda function which is responsible. Okay, let's get the parse file one. So we can omit this one just because we are not using the SQSQ right now. So we can get rid of this one and copy source. Okay, this is the one to replace in our file, blah, 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 copy object, delete object. And actually this is how it looks like with the Python. So I'm just printing the raw of this CSV file. And this is just enough. And I believe in Node.js, you can do just pretty the same, or in the TypeScript, you can do pretty the same. So you can just read this file row by row, but I'm not sure which library you should use, because in my case, it's CSV library for the Python, which gives me an option to get to open this file and read it line by line. And this is just a loop in which I print in it line by line. So this is pretty it. If you will put the console log and make it look similar like this one, so it will be enough. But once again, it's not that important, because yeah, as you can see, there's an already implementation for the upcoming task, and we will just put all the same information in the SQSQ service, which will be responsible to transmit this information to other services, which we will need to use to make our application work. Okay, mine is way better. Okay, I will try. I will try to scale it for Monday. Okay, let's do it at the same time. Why not? Why not? So, if you don't have any more questions, I think let's wrap up. And as usual, if you will have any more questions, feel free to ask them in the Discord channel. I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. Actually, I hope you enjoyed yesterday's workshop. It was quite interesting, and Ivan just shown some of the things which we already know, but some of them actually was new. And when he shown something about the Cognito, it's the topic of our upcoming tasks. So yeah, it's worth watching it at least once again. Okay then. Thank you much for your attendance today. And if you will have any questions, please don't hesitate and ask them in the Discord channel. Me, myself, or the activist, or just whoever will try to help you, no matter what. And see you on Monday. See ya. Bye.